The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It's a funny feeling, like a thief is stealing. Because you took my heart, I have a tender spot right here. It's a funny feeling.
Welcome to An Open Door on the Arts. My name is Barbara Richer, and I am your host as we travel the Capital Region, meeting the most incredible people that enrich our life in the arts in our area. I didn't have to travel far to meet this man, but I was astonished when I got to where he was. Tom Breitenbach is a gentleman who lives in Altamont with a castle as a home. He is a writer. I have to use my paper because he has very many things here. He is an artist, a writer, an architect, a builder, a lover of fantasy, a playwright, among so many other things. Tom created the very well-known proverb idioms. It's a 1974 painting, became a poster, sold all over the world, said to have perhaps sold more than any other poster ever in its time, depicting proverbs and cliches in action. If you've not seen this picture, I'll be surprised. I certainly have, and it's great fun trying to figure out what Tom's art is depicting in terms of a proverb or an idiom. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece, and you might want to go online and have one for your home or your children. He also created a cover for an album for Jim Morrison. And those are just two of a very long list of Tom's artistic accomplishments. Oh, I happen to know that he also made a wonderful poster for the Albany Symphony Orchestra. So he did some things very close to home, along with, and this will be the last of his many things I mentioned before we get on to Hieronymus, a musical fantasy. Tom has created a castle in Altamont, which is his home. You can see it online. It's an astonishing place. It is used publicly for events, and you can check that out online. But he did that with his own hand, with his own architectural skill, his own building ability. It's quite an amazing place, and I hope you'll take a moment and see it online. It's just one hint of the amazing fantasy and ability and creative dynamism that this man brings to our area. So, Tom, was that enough of an introduction?
Thank you. Very nice. Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure I covered all your many years of the many things that you've done, but you are truly a very creative person in a number of ways.
Thank you.
We're here, though, specifically to talk about something very exciting that will be coming to Proctor's stage August 19th.
18th.
August 18th, and that's why you're here, to keep me straight. August 18th. It's a fantasy musical, and it's called Hieronymus.
Right.
Where did this idea come from, and how did you get started?
It was just kind of a fluke. A friend of mine gave me a couple tickets to a musical at the New York State Theater Institute. Mm-hmm. It was an original one, The Snow Queen.
Okay.
This was in the mid-1990s, I think. And I was so entranced to be in the same room with the actual actors. You know, you feel a lot closer to what's happening. You identify with them much
absolutely
much more. And it was absolutely wonderful. And I'm a person who likes to be challenged. As you mentioned, I worked in a lot of different disciplines already.
Yes.
I had written poetry when I was a kid, and I wrote songs when I was a kid, and I was in a rock and roll band. I studied architecture. But I like to be challenged. Otherwise, I get really bored really fast. Mm-hmm. The truth is, after I finished proverb idioms, I was 24 years old. I've always been a little bit bored with painting ever since then. Wow. Because I kind of, did as best I could with that medium.
Well, that was a medium also that when you were using it in that particular form and style was so comprehensive and so detailed. It was incredible.
So anyway, my favorite opera composer, Richard Wagner, calls musical theater Gesamtkunstwerk, which means it's all of the arts put together. And that's absolutely true about a musical, and so I said, "This is the ultimate challenge. I want to try this."
I'm going to do a musical.
Yeah, and but a theater, it's got the architecture and painting in the set design. It has the poetry and the lyrics. It has the music. It has dance. It is a compilation of all the arts. So I decided to do that.
It challenges all of your abilities at the same time. Wonderful.
And but one thing you always have to do to learn a new discipline is to learn the rules. So I bought 120 books. I started attending musicals and books about all the aspects of stagecraft and how to put a set together and how to light a set. And I had to learn all the terms. Gobos, that's a light that shines a pattern on the stage. And so it was really exciting to me. Those were my happiest years, just putting something together like that.
During the 90s?
That was 1998 is when I started working on that musical. But I also wanted to work on something that I knew about. And Hieronymus Bosch, the subject of this musical, he was the artist that made me want to become a painter. And I was had applied to college for architecture, but when I was a senior in high school, a girl gave a slideshow about Salvador Dali and Hieronymus Bosch. They do these really bizarre paintings, and this is so cool. I want to try that. And I had already been interested in Jim Morrison, as you mentioned. Our rock and roll band used to play their music. That was our specialty. And he has those very surrealistic lyrics, too.
Yes.
So I started with the topic I knew about. And the show is very true to life. It's written from the point of view of an artist who's totally obsessed with creating things all the time.
He had an astonishing imagination, Hieronymus.
Absolutely.
We talked.
People still don't quite understand what he's all about, which makes it more interesting. So there isn't a lot written about him either. And this, by the way, is the 500-year anniversary of his death. So
what a perfect time to be doing
there are all
this play.
kinds of celebrations in his hometown in Holland.
Some of this is very happenstance, how all the pieces started coming together. But to have it culminate on also the 500th birthday of a man that was truly an inspiration to you that's very exciting. That's very wonderful.
So I started painting as a hobby in college. I was studying architecture, but doing these works of art in my room. And they had a student art show there, and I put some of them in it. And I was astonished to hear an audience react to work that I had done. It was really exciting.
Yes,
and it was funny and curious. I couldn't figure it out either. I was getting comments like, "I hear he's a chemical engineering major," or "he must be taking this or that." And it was funny. So I ended up switching into that. I had already learned architecture from my father. He had a practice in our home, so I had already knew how to do a lot of that. So I was a little bit bored with the architecture program anyway.
So it was time to move on to something else. I did want to just interrupt you for just 1 minute because I know that our audience is probably able to see that this is not the typical table setting that we have for Open Door. And if you're wondering what these are, Tom will be explaining them, but they are incredibly fanciful, lovely masks that have been created specifically for this show. And he's going to tell us how all of them came to be created. This is just the tiniest proportion of masks that will be in the show. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. Continue. So here you are.
I put this musical together, and I had to learn some of the rules about writing a musical, what works and what doesn't work. And I had a lot of support locally from generous theater directors and community theater. I had a Broadway actress. I had the New York State Theater Institute, and we held a number of stage readings, or studio readings, rather. And they gave me their advice and had very good things to say, and I learned a lot. Little things like someone at the New York State Theater Institute, and that was the last reading we did, said the leading characters have to grow during the course of this. And nobody ever said that before, and I didn't find it in any of the books, but it's so important. You want to have learn some lesson, or you want to feel like you're a better person by the time it's over. So I really rewrote parts of the musical from that.
So that they were learning things throughout the play.
And then we did a high school workshop at Guilderland. That was in 1999. I don't know where the time has gone. And that was quite successful. I asked the audience for comments what we could improve, and they said, "It's perfect, don't change a thing." And I've been to a lot of high school musicals. It's the best one I ever saw. And things. I was very encouraged.
I will admit that I went to the website for this, which will be mentioned at the end of the program, but it's ourmusical.com, and it's either on that or website, or it's on the Tom Breitenbach website, which also we will be giving you at the end of this show. But there were many audience comments that said how amazing it was, how warm it was, how just wonderful and uplifting and lovely and fantastic. So you did have a lot of very positive feedback.
Yes, I put it on my bucket list. I always wanted to do a really big production of this, but of course I don't have a Broadway budget. I don't have the contacts to do something like that on my own and get it exposed. But I gradually started talking with community theater groups to see if we could do something. And Schenectady Light Opera was very, very interested. And this was 5 or 6 years ago. And Proctors Theater was very interested in it. Philip Morris read the script.
Well, I understand the music is wonderful, so I'm not surprised that the Light Opera Company wasn't really intrigued.
They do really wonderful productions every year, all year long. And they were kind of thinking about doing something that was original, too. So that this kind of clicked well, except they had just bought their new location, their new facility on Franklin Street in Schenectady. So they kept putting it off, and then I got busy at home building on the castle. And but finally, a year and a half ago, I resurrected it again, and I talked first to WMHT to see if they'd be interested in filming it, because I wanted to share it. And they were very excited, and they were familiar with me because they had done pieces about me. They just did something for AHA a couple months before I talked to them about it. So they were very excited and said, "Yeah, if you can do a good job with this, then we'll show it and we'll distribute it for you." So based on that and a letter of recommendation from them, I started approaching other groups too. So we've lined up. So Schenectady Light Opera is the core group who's managing auditions and rehearsals and put a team together. And most of the actors have worked with them. And then we had, Proctors Theater is helping financially, doing some of the financials for it and providing the main stage.
Because it actually will take place, it actually will take place on the Proctors main stage on, as we said, August 18th.
And it is all not-for-profit.
Right.
And but I wanted it to be bigger than that because I don't have the Broadway budget to have in all these spectacular sets and things, although our set's going to be very, very nice. I won't give it away. But I just lost my train of thought.
Okay, well, I'm going to mention very quickly that I do have the list of people. We didn't want to leave anyone out. So this world premiere production team that we're calling it is Schenectady Light Opera, Proctors, Navisa Productions, WMHT, Baker School of Dance.
Baker School of Dance, and then we also had the high schools involved creating these beautiful masks. These are some of the smaller ones.
Yes. Tell us about these masks, because these are amazing.
So I contacted schools. I told them the plot of the show, which is about Hieronymus' imagination being too large, so large that the creatures from his paintings are alive and they live in his house.
Wow.
And this is very true to life because my wife would come home and say, "How can I stand to be home alone all the time?" And I tell her, because I'm not home.
Alone.
And I really mean that. I'm so deeply immersed in the worlds that I'm creating that I don't think about my environment. You can come home and find me laughing or crying or marching around the studio in a velvet cape or just something bizarre because I'm really
inhabiting,
getting into the environments that I'm
creating.
creating, the stories or whatever I'm working on, the music. But I approached the different high schools, put the word out, and I know a lot of art teachers anyway. I've judged some local high school art shows and things, so I had some contacts. And they were all very pleased to get their classes involved. So we had East Shenandoah, Schenectady, Guilderland, Voorheesville, Bethlehem, and Ichabod Crane all participated in this. We had well over 100 kids making masks for us.
Wow. I do have two. So they were charged with making the masks, and you must have talked to them about who these creatures were, because the creatures are part of the play. That I'm assuming they must talk, they must maybe dance, they inhabit this land that you've created.
I gave the kids some instructions. I also suggested some particular creatures that we absolutely needed for the script.
Okay.
And some classes really came through on that. We have this gigantic, wonderful, it's a costume of a Dutch stove, tile stove, beautifully.
Wow, amazing.
6 or more kids worked on that at Boyceville. It's got stamped metal all around it, and beautiful job.
How wonderful.
So things like that. Some of these were group projects, and others are individual
hold that up
creations.
a little, and we'll just take a good look at that.
This one is an owl.
Can you hold it a little bit over in that direction? There you go. There you go. That's an owl. Oh, he's so handsome. And this, I'll hold this up. Maybe we can get a shot of this. This would be a bird.
Another sort of bird.
Yeah,
sort of a bird. We have fruits and vegetables.
Wild and crazy.
Yeah, we have fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and bats and big winged things. And
I will share, too, that you were kind enough to open your beautiful garage yesterday and show me where these masks are stored. And it was absolutely like walking into a world of fantasy. You just forgot everything else that was around you, and you had all of these creatures. It was just a wonderful world to be there. It had good energy.
So then we also had to expand the cast and have lots of surprises for the audience. I won't give too much of that away, but we have the Baker School of Dance has joined us. They're doing a ballet. They asked all their best teachers and students to participate. We have 10 or 12 of them. They're going to play the part of a blizzard. Hieronymus is in his painting studio, in a furious painting session. He's painting up a storm, one of his creatures notes, and his girlfriend, who he began courting, has been taking painting lessons, and she rushes to his studio to show him her first painting that she finished, and gets caught out in 5 foot of snow in the middle of summer in this blizzard, because she's also intertwined at this point with his imagination. Yeah, the theme of the show, though, is he's so deeply immersed in his fantasies that he lives in his own little world. But then he starts dating the daughter of a wealthy art patron who's also paid for this commission that he's working on at the time. And we have a full-scale copy of that Garden of Earthly Delights that Bosch did. It's like 14 feet across.
Wow.
That'll be part of the
set.
It'll fly in.
So the story is about this man, this real true man, Hieronymus Bosch, with his incredibly creative imagination that sometimes even takes over him. But he's fallen in love with this girl, the daughter of the art person, and what happens between them, and this is the story of what's going to happen with them.
Right. So he starts dating her. They meet at the church, but how do you explain all this stuff in your house, all these creatures?
Yes.
So he hides them for the longest time. Very difficult to do, because they're
everywhere.
They're into things. They're making noises back there. Oh, it's just rats in the kitchen. There's nothing to worry about it. But eventually, because of the snowstorm, she ends up arriving at a studio unannounced and exhausted and falls against the door, but she ends up breaking in on the studio, basically, and all these creatures are around.
Uh-oh, she knows.
Meanwhile, there was this villainous guy who also likes her, and he, in the Middle Ages, the sorcery and witchcraft, those were very dangerous things.
They were real. Yes.
People were tortured and burned and things over that stuff, and that plays a part too. The villain wants this man arrested. He thinks his paintings are bad enough.
Bad enough, yeah.
In real life, Bosch was shielded from that because he married into wealth. Otherwise, I think his paintings might have
been burned.
Led to some trouble for him.
So it's a romantic love story, a musical fantasy.
Well, absolutely. This love story is there, and the comedy. So she bursts in, but these creatures are so lovable. We have this cute little 9-year-old girl who's supposed to be part berry and part fruit. Have this artist making a gorgeous costume for her. Our second creature, by the way, just got picked up. He's 16 years old. He's got agents on both coasts now. He's going places. And we have an 11-year-old boy too, who just got picked up. He's going to be traveling on the Broadway tour of Finding Neverland.
Oh, wow.
So we have some outstanding talent.
So the casting that you were able to do here in the Capital Region brought forth very high quality musical theater and theater people
It was a little
to
bit,
be part of this.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard because it's summertime and they had, a lot of them had plans and things, but we worked our contacts and found people that were very excited to participate in something new like this.
Now, will you only be doing the one production?
We've reserved,
this point?
we've reserved a second day, but it's very hard to fill up a theater in
Yes.
the summer. That's why Proctors never has musicals.
And this is a
And
big,
that's why I was able to get the theater. We have it for 4
right,
days.
so how many seats are there? There are many, many
It's like
seats.
2,600.
2,600, so for sure, this will be.
So we're trying to fill that one up because it is being filmed for public television. We're filming it the day before the dress rehearsal. We're going to have cameras right on stage for the close-ups.
Okay.
And then we're filming it, and we want to get that audience experience, the wide shots.
And so they'll be able to perhaps be showing it on WMHT, on public television, at some point
If
down
we
the
can
line.
fill it up enough so that it looks good on film, we'll have the audience
How
in there
wonderful.
too. And then if we can fill enough seats on Thursday, the 18th, we can open up the 19th as well.
Okay, okay.
But I'll be glad if we just fill up the first night, then we'll have the show paid for. We had a lot of generous benefactors. Broughton Foundation has paid for the filming. It's a very large grant.
How wonderful. How wonderful.
I'm running a Kickstarter thing, campaign too,
And I know Price Chopper, Market 32
Price Chopper donated.
was in on it too. And Albany Center Gallery
they're
is a
just
sponsor.
helping us promote it,
Right,
getting
right.
the word out because it is an artistic event.
So
It's
you've really brought together this great cadre of people in the arts and out of the arts, but supporting the arts.
Also, the Society for Creative Anachronism, we didn't mention them.
That's right.
Those are medieval reenactors. They're going to provide some warriors for a particular scene, and they're going to provide dancers and do a medieval rounds dance in the beginning of the show.
Oh, how wonderful.
And perhaps the background characters. They have the best costumes.
Oh, how
In fact,
wonderful.
our customer is worried that our costumes that we have at the theater aren't going to match up with the quality of the people who are really into it.
Knowing you and having seen some
she'll
of your
work it
work,
out.
I am sure that everything is going to
Well, I'm not
to
going to be
measure
too
up.
involved with the costumes.
Now, you're directing this, though. Is that correct?
I am, but I have lots of help.
Okay.
I'm the producer, the director, and the set designer. But I'm exhausted. I told my wife I'm this close to snapping.
I'm sure
I've
you
been working
are.
on this for a long time, and
I'm
I
sure you
prefer
are.
doing creative things. But as a producer, you're on the phone and you're writing emails and putting up websites
I know.
and going to meetings.
I know. It's not the piece that
It's
you want to be
amazing how much
doing.
work it is.
It is. It's an enormous amount of work.
But I've been advised to rely on my team more. I got this team together now, and the time is near. Our rehearsal starts July 10.
Okay.
We could use a few more ensemble people if anyone would like to contact me.
Oh, so if you're interested and you have, even without
Background
theater
players.
background, do go to the website, contact Tom, and maybe you'll be on the stage at Proctors in this wonderful play. So how are you feeling, other than the fact that your nerves are frayed and you're utterly exhausted? Do you think once you get in there as the director and you're working the art piece again, you're going to survive this whole undertaking?
I'm going to be nervous to the end. I mean, every little thing has to remain in place. Someone could drop out or get sick. Anything could happen. So, yeah, I'm going to be fretting it till the end.
I think it sounds like, though, with this musical fantasy, that there's so much good heart, happy music. You mentioned happy music. Maybe you can explain that and explain what happy music is. You mentioned that yesterday.
Well, a good musical, I wrote down all these rules to figure out the best way to write this musical. And definitely people like to have a good feeling when the musical's over. They don't like depressing endings. So definitely love story is a big part of it in the music. One of the songs is called It's a Funny Feeling. The kids came up to me when we did it at the workshop at the Old, and they said, Mr. Breitenbach, this song's going to be a big hit. This song could make you rich. If only you could get it to Mariah Carey or some other names I wasn't familiar with, because it was just a very uplifting, a good bridge, a good hook in it, and so forth. And that's at the point in the musical where the two are acknowledging their love, and this young lady's she's very young, and she never had that love before, so she's just letting loose and flying around the studio, and it's very, very wonderful. But what ends up happening, excuse me.
Do we really want to tell people what ends up happening? Don't we want them to come and
Not
see
even
the
a little bit
ending?
more?
Okay, just a tiny bit more.
Just that she does accept these creatures at first,
Okay.
and and lives with them for a while. But eventually it becomes a little bit too much for her. She's thinking, how am I going to raise a family in this environment? And how are the kids going to explain it to their friends?
Right.
So she actually asked him at one point to give up on his imagination, or stop making such crazy things and paint ordinary things. Paint a stove for me for the kitchen that doesn't spit and smoke, and a nice sofa over here. And instead of all these, if your things are going to come alive, then paint these things for me. And that's how Act 1 ends. It's very sad because he agrees to it. And I'll leave it at there.
Okay.
A whole lot of things happen.
So you have to come now, because you don't want to imagine that Hieronymus is going to completely capitulate, give up his imagination, and just make pictures that aren't fanciful. That's not going to happen. So I'm betting there's Act 2 is going to be pretty sensational. So you absolutely must come back to see Act 2 and see what happens with them. We are going to be, you've probably seen some of the pictures, perhaps during the course of this interview that we've put in. Hopefully you have. And at the end of this interview, you will have two websites that I'm hoping you will go to. Mr. Breitenbach's website for sure, just to see all the amazing things that he has done and is doing and will continue to do. And ourmusical.com, which is a wonderful website, very manageable, and will give you snippets of the songs even, which I found so wonderful. So you can really understand what we're saying here and be, I hope, inclined to come and hear the whole song. That's a wonderful website that you've put together, ourmusical.com.
It has some links on there, too, to go to Proctor's box office.
Yes, for
And
tickets.
we're going to also have a booth at Schenectady Summer Night, which is July 15.
Okay.
They close off State Street in front of the Proctors Theater. It's a wonderful event.
Okay.
And you can check us out and go right to the box office and get your tickets there.
What do you think? We only have like 2 minutes. And this is not a fair question because you are so deeply immersed in this and you really are entering, really the directing part is incredibly artistic. It gets you back to your art, and you'll see these amazing actors that I know you've shared with me are wonderful. I wish I could be there for every rehearsal. I think it's going to be wonderful. What's next, though?
After this? Well, I have a few more things on my bucket list.
Okay.
I want to paint one gigantic painting like Bosch's triptych. My paintings are usually these, like the Proverbidiums is about cliches, like you mentioned.
Right.
I have quite a number of those large ones that delve into all different topics, food and recipe names and sports and
we're going to be looking for
names.
them.
Right, but they are a little bit limiting too. I'm limited by the sayings I chose, so I want to just let my imagination totally go. And this painting is going to be called Pure Imagination. And that's what it's going to be. I'm sure it'll take quite a few years to accomplish that. That's my next thing. I want to write a symphony just for fun.
Just for fun? Oh my gosh. So all I can say to you is that we have to keep watching this gentleman. Pure Imagination and a Symphony. Thomas Breitenbach. Fantasy musical. Hieronymus. I hope you'll all be there. I'm going to be. I think we'll walk out. Actually, we won't walk out. We'll dance out of this very happy,
and the
beautiful.
Tickets are very reasonable.
Very reasonable.
$17.50 they start at.
Yes, $17.50. Bring your children. I will see you next time, but this is a musical not to be missed. Thank you.
It's a funny feeling, like a thief is stealing, because you took my heart. I have a tender spot right here. It's a funny feeling.